You could be a leech. You know that? And it's boring. You could be quite boring. Talented Mr. Ripley coming up next. All right. Amanda Dobbins is here. Sean Fennessey is here. I haven't done one with Amanda in a while. It's been a while for us.
I know. It's nice to see you, Bill.
It's great to see you as well. I was delighted to know that you liked this movie as much as I did. This is the most late 90s movie to me. To me personally.
What do you mean by that?
It just uses all of these different people who feel all late 90s at like great points in their career all together, and it's a movie that shouldn't have worked, and I love it, and I've watched it a million times. That's where I'm going to start things.
I'm still getting over the fact that you didn't open this podcast with Tommy.
No, I was going to do it. Tommy.
No, you're right, though. I was looking at the cast, which is really one of the more decorated casts in the history of movies, and it was this whole, basically one generation of people who are now between the ages of like 45 and 52 or 53, just hitting that sweet spot of fame. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow right after her Oscar win, obviously Jude Law with the role that kind of catapults him into stardom, Damon coming off of Good Will Hunting, Philip Seymour Hoffman getting ready to become like the character actor of his generation, Cate Blanchet kind of out of nowhere taking on what should have been a nothing part and making it something special and then becoming a pretty big movie star.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's kind of like the European Dazed and Confused, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, all of these people coming together at this time makes it so perfect.
Amanda was saying it reminded her of the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder a little bit.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, sure.
It did.
She was saying that before. She was thinking of the parallels.
Is that the one with the Harden trade?
It was a year before that.
Okay, yeah. All right.
What's your favorite thing about this movie?
I think this is my favorite Matt Damon performance. I have said on an actual podcast that this is my favorite Matt Damon performance. And I think pretty much per actor, you went through the cast, Sean. I think everyone is operating as high or at their highest level. But I think also for me, I saw this movie at an interesting time in my movie-going career. I think it's kind of one of the first like really serious like grown-up movies that I saw. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't know that movies could be like this and that I could relate to them. And, you know, my relationship to it has changed over time, I think, because I maybe understand it a bit more now than I did at the age of 15. There are some undercurrents, especially the sexual stuff that you don't really, I think you know what's going on, but it kind of deepens. But I'm a person, I think this is a great movie about movie watching, at least for me. I like things to be beautiful and shiny and charming. And I basically like everything that is the first half of this movie. And this movie delivers all of that and also reminds you how dangerous all of those things can be. It's kind of like an indictment every time.
Yeah.
And it's very challenging, but I love it.
I just think that it's basically two movies. The first half of the movie is this incredibly beautiful portrait of living life with wealth in Europe. You know, it's like this is truly easy living. And then the second half, which I don't know if it holds up as well on the rewatch, because the first half is such a fun experience and you feel like you're meeting Dickie and Marge every time and you're kind of getting shotgunned into their world. And then the second half of the movie, especially once you know where you're going, it just feels like the panic starts to fall away from it a little bit and it's not as fun. But the thing that stands out to me rewatching it is Damon seems like he's having so much fun playing a guy like this, playing somebody who's so duplicitous and so smart and so kind of evil. Like he's becoming evil in real time. I don't think he's ever had a part like this ever since, something that he got to play that was not so. He usually plays like pretty decent, also hyper intelligent, but like ultimately the good guy in his movies. Even if he's Jason Bourne and killing a lot of terrorists, he's still like, he's our hero. And this is like as far from a hero as he's ever played.
Yeah, you know, I remember when this movie was coming out, thinking it was going to be a bomb. Because it was, at least with Paltrow and Damon, they had already really succeeded, and now the knives were a little bit out for both of them, right? And it was like, okay, and then she's famously dating Ben Affleck, and she won the Oscar, and people were annoyed by her speech and the whole thing. And then Damon had just been on a good run. And you see, like, they're making this movie, and it's going to be set in the 50s, and you're like, oh, this is a mistake. And then it was the opposite. And I think the thing that struck me is how you catch 5 people in this movie. 5, Damon, Paltrow, Hoffman, Jude Law. and
Cate
Cate Blanchett. 5. You catch them at these perfect kind of time of their careers where you would have just bought stock in all of them. And if you had stock, you would have bought more. And I think Wesley wrote about Paltrow. When was that? Like earlier this year, maybe, about how this career that she kind of could have had that it ended up not happening, but all the interesting work she did really all the way through maybe the early 2000s. And to me, there's like Marge, for example, not a character in the wrong hands could have been really bad. Like if that's like Jennifer Aniston playing Marge, it's going to be bad. And she brings so much depth to it. And I think with all of those actors, they got the most out of those 5 parts.
Yeah, I think Jennifer Aniston playing any part is bad. So that's definitely true. It's true, though. And I was reading a bit about the book. I haven't read any of the Patricia Highsmith novels, Ripley novels, but I was just in reading about the novel. The Marge character was not very smart and not sort of very significant to the story in the way that she is here in Paltrow. Like the movie kind of amplifies a lot of things that it seems like on the page were very surface, and the movie is very much inside Ripley's head. Yeah. And it gives a lot more people a lot more to do, which makes this much more of an ensemble movie. It isn't just, you're not alone with Matt Damon the whole time. Everybody plays a really significant part, which is nice because they nailed the casting like as much as you can possibly nail the casting.
Does it make you disappointed at all that Damon's career wasn't slightly more interesting just from a parts that he picked basis? Because I think he made a lot of different interesting movies, and I think he has credit over Affleck for making better choices IMDb-wise for the course of his career. But I kind of wish he had gotten weirder a couple times. This is the weirdest he got, and it was great. And I wish he had taken 2 more super weird chances like this.
I agree with that. I think when Sean and I did a Matt Damon podcast a bit earlier this year, and there are a lot of roles that are him trying to be weird and don't kind of work in the same way. A lot of his Soderbergh stuff, I think, is him experimenting, like because Soderbergh loves to experiment. But
like that movie Jerry was another one, remember? It was him and Casey Affleck in the desert with Gus Van Sant. Yeah, that was weird, I guess.
He's tried a lot of stuff, but I think that Talented Mr. Ripley is so great because it's him trying it and it works. You know, not all experiments work. And there's something, I think, about the intelligence of this character that Matt Damon is like a very smart guy. And that's not just because I've seen Good Will Hunting. But there is, in all of his best performances, there is an intelligence and sometimes even a smart aleckness to what he's doing. And this movie allows him to do that as well. I think this movie also allows him to be... I mean, he's a very good-looking guy, and he is often playing against that. But he can wear the suits, and he undergoes the transformation. He doesn't pick these kind of restrained, smart, and to Sean's point, I don't know. Would we say that Ripley's evil? I mean, yes, he's evil, but that's a journey over the course of the movie. He's not the bad guy very often.
True.
I think he's played kind of buffoonish bad guys in the past, like Syriana. He is just like a representation of like evil corporate America invading other countries. And in The Informant, he's just kind of like a dopey corporate guy who thinks he's going to get a once over on his boss. He doesn't play, you know, it's interesting. He was supposed to play the Casey Affleck part in Manchester by the Sea. Yeah. And I think that would have been an interesting kind of part for him to take on because it's way more emotionally complex dynamic. That character obviously does something terrible, borderline unforgivable. And there's like the emotional crisis of that movie is different from something like Ripley. But I'd love to see him do more movies like that. Like in Ford versus Ferrari, he is just like heroic American avatar of ingenuity and winning. And he's great in it. And he's great in all of his movies like that. But it's very down the middle.
So he does, from 97 to 99, he does Good Will Hunting, Saving Private Ryan, Rounders, Dogma, and Talented Mr. Ripley, all in a row. Saving Private Ryan and Dogma were supporting parts. But him playing Good Will Hunting, Mike McD Rounders, and then Talented Mr. Ripley, basically in this span of 18 months, pretty incredible range. Those are 3 characters that have nothing to do with each other, really.
And the interesting thing about him doing at that moment in time, obviously Matt Damon was a big star and had won an Oscar for writing Good Will Hunting, but we didn't have like the 20 years of association with Matt Damon that we now have. And so it was an exciting moment because you're like, oh my God, this guy can do everything. Right. And he was trying on all the different parts for size.
I think Departed is kind of a variation of this too.
It is.
I thought he was really good in that movie. Like, he does take chances. This is the craziest chance I think he took. And in the theater 20 years ago, I remember thinking like, oh, wow. Okay, so this is could be potentially Paul Newman for this generation or whatever he's going to be. But now that we have some distance and it's been 20 years, it's first of all striking how much weight he lost for it. It's in the research it said he lost 30 pounds because he wanted him to look, pale, skinny, and pasty, basically. So he did this twice for 2 different movies in the 90s because he did for Courage Under Fire, too.
I was just going to say, this isn't the
where
first
he
time
lost
he's
like
done
40 pounds for that movie.
I don't want to distract us, but there is one shirtless scene when Cate Blanchet is looking at him, and I don't know if I would call him skinny or pasty in that particular scene.
He's definitely pasty, but he's also cut.
He's like really jacked.
Well, I think he starts putting on more and more weight as the movie goes along, right?
Yeah,
I
isn't
guess so in order to be more impressive.
But even when he's on the beach and they see him for the first
Speedo.
time, it's like, I don't know, he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe the 30's overrated. You think it was like 12?
I just want to say, I don't know how much of that sacrifice it was. Yeah.
So he has that. And by the end of this, he is established now as one of the, highest draft pick actors we have I think he was under 30 still at this point.
I think he's like one of the top 5 guys in the last 30 years in movies.
It all seemed believable after this movie.
Yeah.
Not until after this movie was like, what 5 actors are going to have the best careers over the next 20 years? And I think everyone picks him after this.
This movie is also kind of a tough sell, and it was a hit. Like, if you describe the plot, and if you think about the way that it ends, it's pretty dark and strange. And even though it is beautiful and gives you that look at Europe in this way, it's pretty fucked up. Like, the sociopathological stories of Patricia Highsmith are crazy and weird.
But that's why we like 1999 so much, and that's why we've done so many of these movies for this podcast and for Rewatchables 99. We never got to Fight Club this year, unfortunately, but it was one of the last years where everyone was taking huge fucking swings.
Yeah.
I think nowadays Matt Damon's wearing a cape. He comes out of Rounders, and they're like, "Put a fucking cape on. You're gonna be, Plastic Man."
It's definitely true. I mean, I think it's also Anthony Minghella coming off of The English Patient has got a lot of capital.
Yeah.
And
used it.
This is clearly something he wanted to do and got it off the ground amazingly. It's kind of shocking that a 2-hour and 20-minute movie about a gay con man murderer made $150 million. Like, that's pretty...
Set in the 50s.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That is probably the best context for 99 out of anything.
Gwyneth Paltrow, 1998 and 99 only. Sliding Doors, Great Expectations, A Perfect Murder, Hush, Shakespeare in Love, Talented Mr. Ripley. Cranking them out.
That's my girl.
Impressive.
Where are you guys at on Great Expectations?
It's not the best.
It's not the best.
It's not the best of those. I definitely saw it in theaters as a devoted... I guess I was a Gwyneth Paltrow stan even in 98. I don't know. Start him young, I suppose.
Saw in the theater.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I like the Ethan Hawke.
It's Alfonso Cuarón.
I have a little history with Paltrow.
You guys dated?
No. Her dad created my favorite TV show ever, The White Shadow.
Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce Paltrow.
So when his daughter became an actress, I was like, I'm all in. I have season tickets. And plus, she was adorable. We were around the same age.
You had season tickets just because her dad created a TV show?
Yeah. I'm in on the family.
I like the reasoning.
Yeah.
Are you also just in on like David
favorite
Chase's family as well?
No.
Or?
I love The White Shadow the most. And his daughter became an actress. I'm like, I'm in. And then she turned out to be really good. I even saw Perfect Murder in the theater.
I'm a fan of that movie.
Perfect Murder holds
it's
up.
Better than people remember,
I don't know if it
I think.
holds up, but it's very fun and it's of its time.
It's good.
Does Gwyneth Paltrow have range? Or is she just is it just that she is this sort of like elegant patrician woman in real life and also in all of the parts in which she excels?
I think, so here's what I liked about her other than the Bruce Paltrow thing. Because as somebody who went to prep school, she was that girl in prep school who always carried herself like an adult, even at age 15, and just seemed classy and like she had her shit together and was just, boy, if I dated her, that means I'm doing something well. And that was the vibe she had in basically her first 5 years of movies. She's always feels like she's above the material and carries herself in a way. Like, Marge is a character that ultimately is like being embarrassed, right? Dickie's cheating all over the place with her. Then he's not calling her anymore.
Little
And
desperate.
she has this real dignity the whole time. She's never desperate about where is he and all that. She's always like true to herself. And it's a really good character, but also like a really good performance where you believe the whole time she loves this guy. She doesn't believe the story. She doesn't trust Tom. And she's more and more suspicious of him. Her clothes start to change, start wearing darker clothes, and she kind of hits this dark side, but always maintains that quality that I thought made her really special as an actress.
Yeah,
and that even in Bounce. Did you see Bounce?
Yes.
You watched that recently?
I think once a year on a podcast, you ask me, have you seen Bounce?
Bounce is really good.
Sure, it's great.
It's a good one. And it was one of her last good, likable performances before we got too much backstory with her. And the off-movie person started to infringe on the actress.
Yeah.
And
this is
she was a really good actress. And that was why I really liked that Wesley piece, because he's right. She was a really unique special actress.
Yeah, and I feel like Damon never had baggage like that, you know?
No.
Like there is no like off-screen. We talked about this when we talked about him before. We just don't know that much about him.
He's really studious about making sure that he's not photographed.
Well, he fucked up once, though.
Yeah.
He dated Minnie Driver.
Right.
And they did Good Will Hunting, and it became a celebrity relationship. And I think after that, he's like, I'm out. I don't want any part of any of this.
It's interesting. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow has always been kind of the opposite. She's had very famous boyfriends and husbands and is very, very limelight focused, which is certainly her right.
Well, child actress and daughter of an actress.
Right.
So somebody who's used to knows she's going to be in the center of attention and could sing.
Oh, yeah.
Made duets. That's when the wheels started to come off a tiny bit.
I enjoy
you
duets.
like duets.
I love Country Strong. I mean, I just want to say that Gwyneth Paltrow was dating Brad Pitt in 1996. So we stand a legend.
True?
Yes. Don't you remember? And they had the matching haircuts. I honestly think that that's possibly part of the reason that you were into her also, because it was a very early good celebrity couple. And they would show up on the red carpet and they looked like twins.
I had huge crush on her.
Yeah.
I think
always waiting to run into a bar in Boston, but I'm making my run.
A bar in Boston?
Why would she be
in the
filming
bar?
a movie there or something? Make a run.
Yeah.
I'm still in.
What's your pickup line?
I love the White Shadow.
Oh, that would be good.
She
Your
would like
dad
that,
meant a lot
actually.
to me.
Yeah.
That's great. Good conversation
That's very
starter.
smart.
She would probably say he meant a lot to me too.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Like, man, what a guy that guy was.
I don't think
Love that guy.
I don't think I really got her until Royal Tenenbaums. The Royal Tenenbaums part, I think, actually makes a little bit more sense for the prep school girl archetype that you're describing, except the tragic version. The version that is like stiff-backed with great posture, perfect elocution. I don't relate to that girl. I'm not attracted to her.
Well,
I'm not
you're
interested
Long
in her.
Island kid. You think
Yeah.
you're better than me?
Yeah, it is. It is like it's something kind of like tribal about it. And there's no, I don't cotton to that necessarily. But the Tenenbaums thing, I was kind of like, oh, you're tortured. You have a drug problem. You smoke too much. Like you're flawed.
I think also she's funny in Tenenbaums. Like there is a comedic edge to that. And I think Gwyneth Paltrow actually is underrated comedic actress.
I agree.
From Emma to Tenenbaums.
I would say just underrated, period.
I'm with you. I didn't know this was going to become a Gwyneth Paltrow podcast, but I'm all here for it.
Huge fan, and I actually feel like it's a bummer that she didn't act more, because I think she had a chance to be.
She picked a
really,
lot of
really
bad
great.
movies. She
No, I
picked
know
a
she
lot
did.
of bad movies.
But I think the fame kind of, a lot of stuff was going on, and she also became famous right during that first wave of the internet. And people lined up for her pretty quickly, and I think that probably affected her too. Then she started dating Chris Martin. Everybody, one of the most polarizing musicians you could date.
She had her Madonna phase.
Yeah,
She
and
lived in
everybody
London
was
for a
annoyed by
while,
them
and-
as a couple. And then it just felt like it transferred over how people reacted to her movies, which I don't think is totally fair.
I always think it's interesting when someone wins a Best Actor or Best Actress Oscar really early in their career, because the first thing that they do when that happens is they go out and they usually go do a movie to get a paycheck. She didn't really do that. You know, she kind of became a movie star with A Perfect Murder. But like, if you look at Ripley, is the first thing she does after Shakespeare. The Intern, Duets, Bounce, Tenenbaums. I guess Shallow Hal is probably the first
Shallow Hal
one.
was when people turned.
Yeah.
They were like, fuck her.
Yeah.
And they were turning the Farrelly brothers too, and she got caught up in that. And
Right.
then it was like, seems like she lost momentum after that. It was right when she started, probably right around when she started dating Chris Martin too.
And they got married and she had kids and she took some time away from acting as well. And then she got caught up she was in Iron Man. You know, she was very early in being in the Marvel thing.
True.
Even if she doesn't remember it. And then Goop starts it's 2008 or 2009. So I think she really, after Shallow Hal, just takes a turn.
And then Cate Blanchet, this is the first, I would say, signature movie she'd been in. And in the research, the director basically extended her part because he loved her so much and just figured out more scenes for her to be in. And she's another one who's like, the way she carries herself in this movie, it's funny, they're kind of on the same corner, her and Paltrow, and they're just perfectly cast for the 1950s as these kind of debutantes. And she's great too. Really, 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 what is she in 5 scenes?
Yeah.
Hard, maybe not even.
4?
Yeah.
On this rewatch, she was the person who really stood out to me, just because, and as you noted, that character is really expanded, I think, from the original Patricia Highsmith novel. And just the insecurity and also the snobbery that she's just really subtly telegraphing. And she's like, in a lot of ways, a mirror image of Ripley. But it's, you have to be paying attention, or at least I wasn't paying attention before. It's an amazing performance.
She's one of those people who she wasn't there and then all of a sudden she was. Like all of us, she shows up in Elizabeth in 1998 and you're like, I guess this person is a big time actress. And not a movie star exactly. I think I might have even said movie star, but she just becomes like dependable in prestigious films all the time. And she's been in a lot of huge movies. She was in the Lord of the Rings movie. She was just in a Thor movie a couple of years ago. It's not that she doesn't make big movies, but like she just starts showing up in stuff like The Shipping News and Veronica Guerin and The Missing and she's so good in The Aviator. But her career is kind of funny. Like how do you define, we don't talk about actresses like her that much on this show. They don't usually come up. We don't usually talk about movies that actresses like her make all the time. Paltrow is different. Paltrow was like a movie star. She was a very famous person who'd be on the cover of a tabloid. Cate Blanchett is actually closer to Damon. Like we don't know that much about her. She might even be a little bit boring, but she's consistently like, you never walk out of a movie thinking like Cate Blanchett sucked. It's
true. She's got a very, very good stats.
Yeah. To me, she's more of just like the quintessential theater actor. And it's like if she were British instead of Australian, we would just think of her in the way we think of all of the British actors who show up in period pieces from time to time as a way to fuel like their theater companies that they keep on the side, which is actually what she does in Australia.
Right. She's like Alan Rickman or something. Just doing great parts all the time, even if the movie is a little beneath her.
I was going to say she's more like the Philip Seymour Hoffman a little bit. Like when she can pass through a movie for 15 minutes and own the scene she's in and feel like she was one of the lead actors when she actually wasn't.
Yeah.
She's like that in The Aviator.
Yeah, she kind of takes it over though when she's in there. She owns the movie completely, playing Katharine Hepburn. She does the same thing in a Wes Anderson movie in Life Aquatic. She like shows up and you're like, oh my God, all eyes on her.
I'm a huge fan. I'm also a huge fan of the next person we need to talk about, Jude Law.
Oh boy.
Who, after this movie, you're like, this guy's gonna be one of the biggest stars in the world. It is the most charismatic. My wife, if I asked her to list like her 5 favorite parts / performances of all time, this would be one of the 5. She absolutely loves Dickie more than anything.
So this is like, I think that's an unspoken truth that a lot of people agree with. I feel like if you did a list of characters from the last 100 years that you're just like, I just want to be around this character. I just want to watch them doing stuff on screen. He would be pretty high for anybody who's seen this movie.
And that was the whole point of the character.
Yes.
Was he had to be this tornado that people just want to get caught up in. And that's so hard to pull off as an actor.
It is possibly like the most concentrated example of charisma and really charm in a movie that I can think of all time. And obviously there are like a lot of charming people in the movies, especially before, 1960. That's kind of what those movies ran on. But there is something so like natural and also astonishingly like shiny about what he's doing. And it's in his body. I mean, obviously he can wear the clothes, the character and the lines are written in a certain way, but it's just kind of the way he moves. There's like
and how people play off him. Like they just want to they don't want him to leave.
Yeah, he has chemistry with everybody. It's just kind of a force field around him.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. And he's so handsome in this movie. It's really, I spent a whole podcast with Bill's wife and Juliette Littman talking about Jude Law. But I don't have words for it. It's really important.
The amount of equity he bought with the female viewership population from this movie, he is almost immediately involved in a cheating scandal with his nanny.
Yes.
And it didn't end his career because people were like, yeah, you know what? They're like grasping for straws trying to keep him around. But that whole scandal that he was involved with usually like ends people.
Yes.
Where people are like, that guy's a fucking asshole.
Yes.
Like Billy Crudup was another one when he dumped whatever her name is for
Mary
Claire
Louise
Danes.
Parker
Mary
for
Louise
Claire Danes.
For Claire Danes when she was like 8 months pregnant and people are like, whoa, okay. That's terrible.
But we've moved on from that as well.
We've moved on, and now he's stealing the morning show.
There's a period of mourning and people
in disgust,
right, having to be responsible for their actions, and now we've moved on. But you're right with Jude Law that we never really did that. And if anything, Sienna Miller, who was his girlfriend at the time, suffered from the associations from being in the tabloid thing.
Because Hugh Grant, it was never the same for him after that. after his whole little scandal.
I feel
he
like
never really bounced back.
He's fine. He's working all the time. I just think
Jude Law.
Jude Law and Hugh Grant. They're all
Closer was on recently.
Yeah.
Which I had to watch some of because I'm reading this book about Mike Nichols. And it's funny, that's only like 5 years after this movie, and he seems like 20 years older.
Yeah.
Well, he starts to lose his hair pretty quick,
Yeah,
which kind of
it's
dispels him. His hair in this movie, holy shit.
It's great.
He is a hair icon. His whole body is golden.
And
he looks
all
like
the
an
clothes
Oscar.
he wears is perfect.
He's a hat icon. It's
Yeah.
it's tremendous.
And when Gwyneth Paltrow as Marge says, when Tom starts getting bummed out, Dickie's kind of shunned him for Freddie. And she says, the thing with Dickie, it's like the sun shines on you. It's glorious. And when he forgets you, it's very cold. When you have his attention, it's like you're the only person in the world. That's why everybody loves him. You have to be pulling off the performance for somebody to say that about you and it not seem like the worst part of the movie. But she's right. You're like, I get it. This guy walks in a room, everybody just wants to gravitate toward him.
It's true. He has like a light in his eyes the whole time. And he's doing things that on another actor would look ridiculous. He's playing the saxophone, He's wearing a jazz hat.
He's like the original white guy who loves jazz in movies. Yes. And it just goes on forever. There's so much.
Yeah.
The other thing is just like, Dickie is a bad person, just really demonstrably. He does a lot of terrible things, and you can see him and even intellectually acknowledge, well, that is a terrible thing that person just did, but like I don't care because I'm so like ensorcelled by Jude Law.
He never topped this from jumping off a movie screen. He's had a good career, but he's never topped it.
It's been very up and down. I think if you look at the movies he made right after this, it's him kind of trying to reject being the most beautiful man in the world. Like he makes AI, which is basically like a commentary on the robotic beauty that he possesses. He makes Road to Perdition, where he plays like a really grimy, I think he's like an assassin, and he's like kind of ugly, and I think he puts a gap in his teeth. Cold Mountain, he's covered in dirt the whole time. He's a soldier. I Heart Huckabee is one of my favorite, most underrated movies of the century, where he plays this character, Brad Stand, who is almost like it's almost like if Dickie Greenleaf was born in 1980 instead of in 1940. And he's just like so full of shit and so golden and like such a bad person, but also he's like, people are attracted to him. Like he has this ability to seem like super phony, but also magnetic at the same time. It's a gift.
Last one, Hoffman. This is when he goes on to his character actor around 99, 2000. He's in Flawless. Where do you stand on Flawless?
Not aging well.
It felt like it was supposed to be an important movie at the time. It never got there, and now it's just gone.
Yeah, I didn't really love it when I saw it back then either.
Magnolia.
Iconic.
Talented Mr. Ripley. Stayed in Maine, and then Almost Famous. By the time Almost Famous is out, it's like, oh, Hoffman, this is the guy. He can pass through a movie, put 10 minutes in, and steal every scene, even more than Cate Blanchet.
Is it like, should we just talk about him right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
By far best actor of his generation. Like not even close to me. I think probably simultaneously like the funniest, scariest, most vulnerable actor ever. Like not afraid to be disgusting, not afraid to be weird, not afraid to like he could be King Lear one moment, and then he could be like the biggest dirtbag of all time the next moment. And you mentioned it before, but he kind of, just like Dickie, he kind of just like pulls into this movie like a tornado. As soon as he's on screen, you're like, what the fuck is going on with this guy? He's very funny but disgusting. And he could just take over. And I think he's good in his parts where he's the lead. He's good in Capote, and he's obviously great in The Master. But I love him best when he is just Scotty J or Miles,
Agree. And what's funny is you got Scotty J. He's got the Magnolia guy who's very meek.
Yes. Very sweet, very earnest.
We did when we did Rewatchables 99, like Cruz has the big scene. And Hoffman's just in the background sobbing, like just got so caught up in the Cruz performance, like he just kind of broke down. Then he does this character. And then Lester Bangs at Almost Famous, which he filmed in 2 days when he had a cold. And I mean, when he's in the record store, he's like, Iggy Pop, amen. And like the energy that he could bring, like you could feel it. But I loved him in this movie, I think, the most. I think this is my single favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance because he's in 3 scenes. And in each of the scenes, you're like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah, and it's not like he's taking on small actors. He's taking on big-time movie stars, blowing them off the screen.
I mean, that's the thing I often feel when we talk about character actors or supporting actors. the difference between them and movie stars is they don't often always have that magnetic quality. They have other things. They can assume a lot of different personas. But Philip Seymour Hoffman has that same, you just want to be near this person and watch every second of what's happening to him, even though he's only in the movie for 10 minutes.
And I always feel like he's creating a character. Like they give him Freddy, right? And they're like, this guy's a fucking douchebag. He's Dickie's buddy. And he's gonna think he's better than Ripley. Those are your instructions. And he's like, okay, good, I got it. And then he comes back and he's got this character. And like when we were going to talk about the boat scene, Tommy has peeping. But before he says that, he's kind of watching him and he does that laugh where he's like, but like it's so douchey, but he can pull it off and he just seems like the biggest fucking douchebag.
I know.
And his dad's probably some billionaire somewhere and he's just like the perfect prep school douchebag.
My favorite little moment is when he's in the record store listening to the jazz records and there's a close-up of him and he's looking at Ripley with such disdain, such contempt, such like, you're so beneath me, revulsion. And there's no dialogue. He's just holding headphones up to his ears and looking at somebody, but he says everything with the one look.
And Tom shows up at breakfast the next day and he's just like, I'm starting in on this guy right away. I'm just cutting his legs out. Great job, Ham. Matt Damon said this was his favorite film he's ever made. $40 million budget.
You think that's still true, the Damon thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
$40 million budget, $130 million it made, 5 Oscar nominations. The cast includes 4 Oscar winners. Everybody but Jude Law, who got nominated.
The OKC Thunder comp is pretty legit.
It's not bad. I didn't realize the director died at age 54.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that. I thought he was older for some reason, but he had a fatal hemorrhage for cancer of tonsils and neck.
Great filmmaker.
He had been trying to make this movie over and over and over again on his terms, and it took a while because the book was apparently famous. I'm going to step on casting what ifs for a second. He said he wanted final say over who played Tom Ripley and said, I'm not making the movie until I find Tom Ripley. We're not just going to make it with a guy I'm 80% about. It's like, I have to have. So that was one thing. The other thing he said was, who were the brightest and most interesting group of young actors I could find in the world? That's who I tried to put in the film. And when I turned around a year later, they were all household names.
Yeah. The casting in this is so remarkable just because all 5 of those people have to have chemistry with each person individually. It's not just like Jude Law and Matt Damon have to have chemistry, but then like Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon have to, and Cate Blanchett and Gwyneth Paltrow have to have the chemistry, or like they have to be plausible enemies. It's remarkable that he found these 5 people. I mean, I guess
so 5 for 5.
Yeah, then they became 5 movie stars. So shout out Anthony Minghella.
But like Blanchett was not a movie star when he cast her, and Jude Law was not a movie star. And he gave Jude Law a really big part. Like he saw something.
He's coming off of Gattaca. And I think in Gattaca, people were like, this guy's going to be a thing. So there was some momentum for Jude Law.
That's a fun stage when somebody's in the gonna be a thing part of their career.
Yeah.
Like Chris Pine right after Star Trek.
Yes.
It's like gonna be a thing.
Yes.
But they all have that moment, except for Gretchen Mol. It didn't last very long. Vanity Fair, and that was it.
Tough beat, but a worse version of this movie stars Gretchen Mol instead of Gwyneth Paltrow. That's the thing. Like you do have to get lucky with these kinds of people.
And that's the thing. If Gretchen Mol is Marge, the movie takes a hit.
Yeah.
It's a really hard part, and it could go wrong in the wrong hands of somebody trying to be super whatever. Roger Ebert.
Raj came through.
4 out of 4.
Yes!
Quote, an intelligent thriller. Quote, insidious in the way it leads us to identify Tom Ripley. He's a monster, but we want him to get away with it. I'm so glad Raj is back on the board.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? That's an interesting way of phrasing it. Are you rooting for Ripley?
Yeah, 100%.
I think you kind of are against your will. You both are like, this is really screwed up and it's about to happen, but it's a little bit structurally because you are, as you said, in his mind and you're watching it. And there just is also that first hour, you are also like totally enraptured with Dickie and Marge, and you also want to be a part of it, or at least I do. But I mean, it's great. I would love to spend my summer on the Amalfi Coast. And so you're at least sympathetic to him?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the movie, you feel like, oh, he's kind of like an underdog, like lower middle class kid just trying to make his way in the world. But as things unfold, you're like, this guy is a specific brand of evil. I don't, maybe he's just evolving in real time or he's just mentally ill or something. They never really say, but
I rooted for him the whole time.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Even after he
bashed
Freddy's head in.
I had this in Unanswerable Questions. Was this the year the anti-hero was officially born?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Ripley, Tony Soprano, Fight Club guys.
Yeah, Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
Those were the first three. And then it's like, boom, we're off. Anti-heroes. The Shield comes.
Interesting. That's
the
a good
Wire
theory.
guys. And then it's like, oh, cool. We can root for these terrible people now.
Yeah. Well,
I don't remember doing that before the end of this decade.
We had like Dirty Harry and stuff like that in the 70s. There was versions of it.
Dirty Harry, how dare you?
Dirty Harry is
He's
not
a great cop.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Broke several laws.
No.
Murdered several suspects.
He did what he had to do.
Okay, that's your take on Dirty Harry.
He taught people a lesson.
Sure, great. This is.
I think of that as like the vigilante era.
Okay,
that's like the Death Wish, Dirty Harry. These criminals are crazy. Thank God we have this one person who's not afraid of them. We'll take care of business.
Right. Almost like an anti-hero.
I was a vigilante.
Okay.
He's protecting us.
Okay.
Let's go to the categories. Most rewatchable scene. Tom hangs out with Dickie for the first time. Unless you want to go earlier with the scene.
Is that the Speedo scene or when he comes to lunch afterwards and starts doing the impression of the dad?
Yes.
Okay.
When he says, Dickie says, what are you good at? And he says, forging signatures, telling lies, impersonating practically anybody. Which I thought was a little weird that you would show your hand coming out of the gate. Maybe that was a little Jedi mind trick by him. Yeah. But that whole, as he's trying to win over Dickie and Dickie's like, this fucking schlub, I don't even remember him from Princeton, but is kind of enamored by him for some reason.
Yeah, well, I think that powerful, charismatic people like to be surrounded by people who they know they're more charismatic than. So Dickie's attracted to that in a way with him. He knows he can kind of push him around a little bit, big brother him.
Is that why you have Chris?
No, that might be why you have me. But but I think the other thing too with Damon's character saying that is, I think one thing that con men do really well is they actually reveal something about their strategy to make you trust them more. To sort of say like, I'm letting you under the hood. I'm letting you see like my interior. So then you'll know that even if I'm conning other people, I'm never going to con you.
Right.
I would never hurt you in this way because I can do this. So that's a really cool scene. Can I give a quick shout out to the opening credits, which I know is not like a cool thing to say, but the style of the opening credits is very Saul Bass, who made a lot of opening credit sequences for Hitchcock, including Strangers on a Train. Strangers on a Train is also a Patricia Highsmith adaptation. There's like a lot of purposefulness behind that. The sort of like, it's almost like two lines like sliding over each other, and even they're showing like Dickie walking in Europe, and there's like a green bar like lens through him, because it's all about the way that you see people and the way that they can flip. Like there's all like little subtle choices in the movie like this throughout, like in the filmmaking that I really like.
The mid-late 90s is when we really got good at credits.
You think so?
There's a lot of next level, like even Enemy of the State.
I don't remember. What are the credits like in that one?
Just really good. Really strong credits.
Okay.
Really good.
Great.
For years and years, it was just words for the credit. And it'd be like, directed by this person, starring this person. And then they actually started to make them a little visually stimulating.
I remember Seven had really good credits. They were sort of disgusting, but like revealed what kind of movie you were going to get.
Next rewatchable scene, Tom sings jazz with Dickie for the first time.
Yes.
My wife's probably favorite movie scene of all time.
Wow.
It's in the running. She loves it so much.
It's irresistible. It's all of the movie's themes and like drama condensed into 2 minutes, and is also just really, really watchable.
Yeah, my wife also is obsessed with this scene. It's funny that you say that. That's why I was kind of taken aback when you said it. She used to sing this song
Jude Law
all the time. Yeah.
Dude, we got Americano. Is that a real song?
Yeah,
I should have researched it. Whiskey and soda.
Yeah.
You keep going.
And then she brings
more stanzas.
That's all I know, because I know the one Italian line, and then when they say whiskey and soda.
Great job by the Italian guy.
Yeah.
Really sells that song.
Fausto?
And then they bring Matt Damon in near the end, and he does just enough, like, I'm super awkward, I don't really belong here, but I'm really so happy to be here, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And he's just staring at Jude Law the whole time. He's just completely loving it.
It is good character building.
Good job by him. That's a great scene. Next one, Freddie enters the movie.
This is an all-time 5 seconds. Is this even a scene? It's just
Just the
honestly
whole-
one line and the entrance. Oh, it's so good.
And then takes them to go listen to jazz records,
Yeah.
which I guess was a thing back then.
Did you
They're
have
just
this-
sharing each sharing a
I
headphone.
feel like we had like listening booths in my lifetime. Like you had to go to the record store to listen to CDs before you bought them. In like 94, you could do that. No one else did that?
The listening booth?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like go to the wall.
Right.
Just spend hours in there
There we
listening to
go, yeah,
records.
okay.
It was great. You couldn't,
Right.
Spotify, that didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
I just want to say, could you imagine being Philip Seymour Hoffman, being a young actor? You get this script, you look at the script, and it says, Freddie enters pulling through a piazza in a cherry red Alfa Romeo, and this is what he says. Oh God, don't you want to fuck every woman you see just once? That's the first thing he says. It's just one of the best entrances in movie
somehow
history.
in a charming way.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of gross, but yes.
No, it's very sleazy,
No, he
but
does
in
his
a
charming
charming
Freddie way,
It's
though.
like,
You're like, oh, I
you're
kind of
like,
like this
oh,
guy.
it's
Who's
like
this
Our
guy?
friend is here.
Yeah.
I have Freddie again. Next rewatchable scene, Freddie making fun of Tom at breakfast and then leading to the boat. When they're in the water and Marge gets off the line, why is it when men play, they always pretend to kill each other, which I think is just a good line.
Good line.
Mhm.
And then finally leading to, they go down in the bottom and Ripley's just watching and Tommy goes, Tommy, how's the peeping? How's the peeping?
Tommy.
Tommy. Do you think that was in the script? Do you think the script was like, Tommy has the peeping and Hoffman's like, I have some ideas.
Well, he kind of makes it jazz, you know? He kind of
Tommy.
makes it rhythmic.
How many times do you think you've said, Tommy, how's the
Tommy.
peeping to people who have no idea what that is a reference to?
I wish we had somebody named Tommy. Oh, I do. I have Tommy
Yeah.
Alter.
Yes.
Oh, I'll just start doing that with
No.
Tommy.
You've never done that with Tommy?
No, I never have.
You said it to me
Well,
probably
he's always been
300
Tommy Alter.
times.
Tommy. The boat murder is really good and really
is.
well done
Yeah.
and violent and weird and well acted. And it flips and he goes, who are you, some third class mooch? And it just gets super ugly and unfolds in a way that it seems realistic that he would kill him, not intentionally. And then he transforms.
I think the line that you open the show with is like one of the more devastating digs you can put on a person. You know, you're a leech and it's boring. It's so boring. Like that is pain. Imagine someone saying that to you. Imagine feeling so dismissed.
Well, and this is the best. If we're going to talk about big, I was going to do this in What's Age the Best, but the big picture theme of the movie is you have this whole super wealthy culture that everyone else aspires to get to. And the closest this guy can come is basically to infiltrate it with the stupid, come go get my son, and then pretending he's something he's not. And he's living a lie the whole time, but he's getting a piece of this culture in this whole world that he would never have a chance to be in otherwise. And at some point he's like, I'm just going to start killing people. I'm not ready to leave. I'm not leaving this.
I mean,
I'm leaving a trail of bodies so I can stay here.
he's also trying to protect things about himself that he wants people to know but doesn't want to say out loud. You know, like he's in love with Dickie and he's convinced himself that he and Dickie have something more, you know, and
I think there's a difference between he's convinced himself that they have something more and he's in love with Dickie. And that's an interesting tension to the movie, to what extent his affection for Dickie is about wanting to be with Dickie and versus wanting to be Dickie and have all that Dickie have all that being Dickie means.
So one other scene I would add that comes right before the one that you're describing that I think is important to that conversation is when they're playing chess and Dickie's in the bathtub, which is a really peculiar scene. And I'm sure when I was like 16 and I saw it, I didn't really get it. I didn't really get what was going on. The power dynamics, like what Dickie is doing to him, if he's like challenging him sexually, if he is interested in him, but he won't say anything. Like there's a lot of unspoken going on in that scene that obviously like kind of triggers Ripley. It kind of like sets him off in a way.
I didn't include that because I felt like that scene they were trying like 10% too hard to establish some sort of sexual tension thing. And I just never got the feeling that Dickie was gay.
I didn't think Dickie was gay either. I think he was like lording it over him in a way.
He knows that Tom is interested in him in the way that everyone is interested in him. And Dickie is using that against people and against each other constantly.
Exactly. Because everyone is attracted to Dickie. Even Freddie, who's not gay, is like, where's Dickie? I want to be around Dickie. I need to be around Dickie.
The next one, most rewatchable scene, Tom runs into Peter and Marge at the opera, coming right off the opera, making him cry because it's this parallel to how he killed Dickie, basically. And then he's strutting around with thinking he's Dickie, but then all of a sudden, these two people who know that he's not Dickie, and the way he handles it, and he slinks around everything about how that scene's shot. He slinks around the corner so Marge can't find him, and it's really well done.
Damon's performance is so good.
And Marge is it's the first time the hint of her being like, wait a second.
What's going on?
What do you mean?
Yeah, why are you here? How did you get in here?
You saw Dickie? Like but not too accusatory, but you can see she's sizing him up the whole time. And is so confused, but I like that scene. And then Freddie confronts Tom. That would be my next scene.
Similarly, like some of the best line
Incredible
readings,
Hoffman.
Just the Hoffman where he's like, what is the line? What does he ask him?
He starts hitting the piano. And he knows it's bothering Ripley, and he's just hitting. Can you? That's a very expensive piano. Can you not? And he's just pounding it.
And he asks whether Dickie decorated the apartment himself.
And he's like, it's so bourgeois.
And then he shits on it.
Yeah.
And the part when Tom is trying to tell him where Dickie is, and he says, "Oh, Otello's is on Della Croce, just off of the Corso." And Freddie's like, "Is it on Della Croce, just off of the Corso? You're a quick study, aren't you?" So he's really, Hoffman's incredible.
Do you think he knew Freddie?
The character?
Yeah. What is Freddie thinking at this point?
He knows he's a con man, right? He knows he's full of it and he didn't go to Princeton.
Right.
I don't think he knew that he killed Dickie, though.
No, but do you think he thought maybe he stole money from Dickie or something?
Yeah, of course. I think he thinks that Tom is there trying to take advantage of the situation, probably in the same way to an extent that Freddie is. I mean, they all are taking advantage of Dickie and of each other, but I think he's suspicious.
I don't have any more 100% rewatchable scenes. I really like the first 2/3 of this movie more than the last third. I do like, though, when Paltrow flips out at the end. When they say goodbye after Philip Baker Hall, when he tells them what actually happened, and then they're going on the boat, and she just kind of snaps and goes, "You did this! I know you know, you get it."
Yeah, and that was a big change from the book because she didn't. In the book, she doesn't suspect him at all.
That scene's good. I wouldn't give that totally rewatchable though. Any other rewatchables for you?
I do like the Philip Baker Hall scene a lot. Because you think it's going to go one way and then it goes the other way. And you think you're going to get this big reveal where he interrogates him and he's forced to confront him. And like all of the Ripley stuff, all the other Ripley movies, Purple Noon, the original Ripley, every time you think he's going to get caught, he wriggles out.
Yeah.
The problem with Purple Noon is that he gets caught at the end and that like totally betrays the point of the Ripley character who is uncatchable, who is like such a mad genius. And when Detective, what's his name, McCarran, comes in and he's like, I don't like bullshit. I don't like talking it and I don't like hearing it. You think he's going to cut straight to the chase and be like, you killed Dickie? And instead he's like, what I'd like to do is give you money because you did such a good job. It's crazy. I like that scene a lot.
He's basically playing the Boogie Nights character too. I'm a simple man.
I feel like
Philip Baker Hall is the same guy in 7 of these movies and I love him every time.
There is like an underrated Philip Baker Hall run that he's smack dab in the middle of. So he goes 1997, Air Force One, Boogie Nights, The Truman Show, Rush Hour, Enemy of the State, The Psycho remake, Cradle Will Rock, The Insider, Magnolia, The Talented Mr. Ripley, Rules of Engagement.
Jesus. That's like 11 movies.
He's like that guy of his time. Yes. He is, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, but that's, I agree with.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Most rewatchable scene for you guys?
I mean, for me, it's the singing in the club.
I agree.
What's aged the best? Jude Law, we covered him. Peak Blanchett and Peak Paltrow. I wrote that one down.
Okay.
Peak
Paltrow.
Peak.
Not Peak Blanchett for me.
Just like that young version of them.
Sure.
Captures them at the perfect time of their young careers. Italy. Have it with an exclamation point.
Love it.
Seems so great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, in this whole movie, just the production value, it's so like sumptuous and beautiful, and you want to be a part of it, which is like part of the kind of the tricky edge of this movie is that you're, do you ultimately want to be a part of what's going on here?
Right.
I'm not sure, but for the first 2/3 of it, I definitely do.
It is sometimes these movies just make you want to go visit the place.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons my wife likes this movie so much is you watch this and you're like, man, I got to get back to Italy.
Yeah.
You just see the different things. Oh my God.
We'd all like to go to Montebello. Unfortunately, it does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did was Positano?
Positano, yeah.
That still exists.
It sure
Does
does,
exist.
yeah.
I would love to go.
Dickie's Clothes I had down.
Wait, can we do a live Rewatchables from Positano?
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
Dickie's Clothes, they did a great job. I have Philip Baker Hall's one scene. And then I have this. Tom is talented. Tom is tender. Tom is beautiful. Tom is a mystery. Tom has nightmares. Tom has someone to love him. That is a good thing. Tom is crushing me. Tom is crushing me. Tom, you're crushing me. How they do that is really great.
Well, the camera's
Tom
not
is
on
good.
him.
Tom is
He's back in his room.
Tom is crushing me.
Yeah.
Tom, you're crushing me.
What? You see him, he's got a tie or a rope or something.
I thought it was a belt.
A belt.
Belt,
He's got
yeah.
something, and he's walking over to the bed, and he sits on the bed. He's talking to Peter.
And he knows he's going to do it.
And he starts leaning on him, right? They have this physical connection.
Yeah.
And you know that he's going to start doing something. And then we get the cut, and we go back to Tom's room, but you can still hear the dialogue. But when he's saying he's crushing me, what is he doing to him?
I think he thinks he's like giving him a little love tap strangle from behind, and then it's a full-fledged strangle.
An asphyxiation.
Yeah,
That's you think that's
maybe
part
that
of
would
their
he
lovemaking?
bargained. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I'm not here to judge.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Matt Damon is snuggling up on him, you have to figure that he's pretty much on top of him and strangling
he,
him from
put
behind.
his elbow in his back and strangling him? Or
Yeah,
something?
maybe he
think
did
he's
like
just-
a UFC move on him.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Okay.
Like he's bear hugging him from behind like they're buddies, and then
Yeah.
just gets a little tighter and
Brock
tighter.
Lesnar choked him out.
Yeah. Any other What's Age the Best for you? We've covered a lot of it.
I mean, scammer season
Yeah.
it has definitely. I think it's probably always been relevant. I don't think that talented Mr. Ripley or even Patricia Highsmith invented scammer season, but this movie definitely applies to certain recent events and this infatuation with how you look and superficial. Why are you saying Anne Hathaway?
I don't know. She got scammed
Did she? Oh yeah, by the
By an Italian.
by the prince.
by the Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I more meant like, Anna Delvey and all
Yeah,
the Instagram people who are like,
Oh,
everything
I gotcha.
about surfaces and looking good and what you project versus what is actually there. This movie is like certainly relevant.
And all of those people are doing the same thing as Ripley. They're trying to enter this elevated lifestyle. They're all trying to get a little closer to that wealth, that success that
Right.
they have no access to.
I have for What's Age the Best other than Jude Law, just Italy.
Yeah.
Just
Aging
love
well.
Italy.
It's thousands of years of
Italy
beautiful history.
Still winning. Italy.
I will say when I was watching it, I was thinking back and wishing I could have visited Rome in the 1950s when it was not overrun with tourism in quite the same way. Obviously, it'd be nice to be in Rome in the year 1000. It would have been nice to be there.
I don't know whether historically speaking 1000 was like the highlight for Rome. I think that
what
was
the
kind
best
of
year.
Well, you might want to be there like, at the dawn of the new millennium or the old millennium when things are really popping off. 1000 is kind of like Dark Ages.
Okay, maybe 1400, just as
The
Renaissance was about to strike. That would have been cool.
You know what's
some
cool?
New Pope stuff.
You know what's cool?
Yeah.
Rome.
It's awesome. It's
Rome's
so great.
amazing.
Big fan.
It's because everything, you don't actually have to, you can go to a museum, but most of the stuff is just like on the street and you can look at some old shit and then eat some pasta. It's great.
It'd be cool if we had like the leftovers though for Rome, where like half the people would just disappear. And then
You just had a really traumatic experience recently. You went in the summer.
I went in the summer and it was so crowded and so hot. It was beautiful. I had a great time. But it didn't smell great.
Yeah.
It didn't smell great.
There's not a lot of deodorant in Italy. I'm half Italian. I can say that.
Can I just say that Rome is great? You know what is also great is the Mediterranean, and particularly the Italian coast on the Mediterranean, an A+ experience. My husband planned my wedding and I planned my honeymoon because I didn't really want to have a wedding. I just wanted to have a honeymoon. But it was literally, my theme was talented Mr. Ripley without the murder. And I want to say, I think we got pretty close.
And then he threw in one murder, but it was only one.
It's fine. We covered it up.
What's Age the Worst? Covered the last 45 minutes of the movie. A little slow. Probably could have cut 10 minutes out of there.
It's a little slow.
Sylvana's death scene still confusing to me.
Me too.
That's kind of my one, what the fuck were they doing here and what's going on? And
it is really confusing.
I don't understand how she killed herself. And how they knew she killed herself and just any of it and why they thought it was a suicide versus her being murdered. And I just don't understand any of it.
What is your interpretation?
Who was hugging each other and were the brothers? And
well, my interpretation is just that they're there for a different festival, right? It's like that. What's it? The something about the Virgin Mary. Always the case in Italy. And then she,
and none of them are virgins. That's the problem.
That's okay. You know what? This is a sex positive podcast, okay? And then she shows up.
What does that mean? Sex positive?
No, it's just anytime Sean keeps being like, Sean likes to shame people for having sex in movies, and I don't think
sex shamer.
I only like to shame whores and the men who sleep with them.
Great job.
Out of wedlock, defying Christ.
Okay.
His teachings.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to know that. Well, you are, the viewer is, but like the people at the festival are just upset because like their friend is just drowned.
I mean, that always puts a damper on a festival.
Yeah, exactly.
When the dead body is floating in there.
It's not what you want.
I just so confused. How did she kill herself?
She drowned herself.
Who drowns themselves as a suicide? Like usually you would like tie a rock to your leg, right?
I'm not even totally sure I fully got her despair. Obviously she's pregnant and
she's
having
missing.
this illicit affair, but there's something doesn't connect. Like it just
she says,
jumps quickly.
She says at one point, like, Dickie, we have to talk. And he's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden she's dead. All of it is
But then they cut
off.
straight to Dickie. And I think you're just supposed to know that he's involved in it somehow. Right? Or that he is somehow responsible for it.
We knew they were fucking. We just didn't know.
Yeah, but as soon as they cut to him, you're like, oh, she's dead. He must have done something.
But is there a possibility he murdered her, though?
I think there could be.
They insinuate that in some ways, but in other ways, it just seems like a total tragedy to him. Like it's kind of hard to, it's just hard to understand. And the movie is about ambiguity in some ways, but that part I completely agree, Bill. Like I couldn't really gather what they were going for there.
Any what's age of worse for you that we haven't covered?
No.
All right. Casting what ifs. Apparently, Leo declined the offer to play Ripley before Damon was cast.
Would not have
Yet
been,
again.
Would not have been
Damon
right for him.
versus Leo.
Comes up over and over again.
Always. I think it would have been a different movie. It wouldn't have been as good.
Leo should have been Dickie. Leo's not.
Leo as Dickie would have been great.
And at that age, he could do it.
Yeah. Blonde, tall, handsome.
Christian Bale considered for the role of Tom Ripley.
He could have done it.
He's like slightly too menacing.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because Damon is using his kind of boyish all-American looks and vibe in this. And you can like watch it turn in his face, but Christian Bale doesn't have that. He has other gifts.
It's true. It's funny, a year later, he's American Psycho. And there's that's kind of an interesting double feature about con men who lure people to be murdered.
And Leo ultimately plays Gatsby, which is another like in this conversation. And I think Leo makes more sense for Gatsby because Gatsby is more like outwardly flamboyant and showy, much like Leo's style of acting.
John Malkovich apparently came very close to directing this movie. That's weird.
He later played Ripley.
He played Ripley in the sequel.
Strange.
Yeah. The Dion Waiters Award. It can only be Hoffman.
It can only be Hoffman.
I think Dion Waiters in real life, the basketball player.
Yes, thank you.
It's not going well.
Oh, no.
He's been suspended twice in Miami for conduct detrimental to the team.
Are you about to rename the Dion Waiters Award?
The Freddie Miles Award is kind of pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the all-time heat checks we've ever had in this pod.
Wow.
I thought what we would do is...
This is a big moment.
Well, I thought when we get to the 100th and we do the reheat, me and Chris Ryan...
Is that actually happening?
Yeah, the 100th...
That's really nice.
100 episodes and then the 101st is the reheat with me and Chris Ryan. We're just doing it again. Have some more thoughts since the last time.
I'm really glad you guys found each other.
Thank you. But I was thinking maybe we'd have the listeners give them 4 choices, put it on the Twitter account.
Okay.
Because I think we should rename Dion Waiters after the 100th.
Okay.
For the heat check. It should be a new person for the second 100.
I will say, I think I finally learned what this award meant.
And now we're changing it?
No, but if it's Freddie Miles, I still understand what it means, so that's okay. The
Freddie Miles Award is pretty good.
I love it. I don't think we can change it yet because wasn't Dion Waiters on this Oklahoma City Thunder team? And isn't Hoffman's character kind of the Dion Waiters?
There you go. That's why we do it. Apex Mountain. You could make a strong case for Gwyneth there. She's already won the Oscar. She's in another big movie. She's been in 6 commercial movies over the last 2 years. I don't know if she has more power at any other point than she does right now.
I'm sorry that we have to redefine this category in every episode, but is Apex Mountain limited to acting or movie endeavors?
It is about peak of your powers. When did you have the most career options? When did you have the most juice to do whatever you wanted?
Okay.
I mean, the Goop thing is so
Yeah,
huge.
I was going to say, I honestly think it might be right now. I know that's ridiculous.
I would say that's Gwyneth, the business woman.
So that's
You mean just
Mountain.
the actor?
I think the actor. I think this is Apex Mountain for her.
It's a good case.
okay.
Jude Law?
I mean, absolutely.
Has to be, right?
Yeah.
This is coming out of this movie. We're like, this guy's going to be James Bond. This guy's going to be, who is this? He's the most handsome man in the world. What's next? And he never really topped it.
He strikes me as one of those guys who's going to win an Oscar when he's like 71. And it's going to be for a really like saccharine, mediocre movie. But we're going to be like, Jude Law has given us so much. It's time to honor him in his time. And we're going to look back and be like, why didn't we honor him for a movie like this? He was nominated.
Like when Michael Caine won the Oscar?
Exact same, and the year that he won the Oscar for this, in this race.
Oh, yeah,
he
you're
won
right.
for the Cider House Rules, and Jude Law was nominated.
1950s Italy I have for Apex Mountain.
Okay.
What?
I mean,
I just wanted to mention Italy again.
This movie is Apex Mountain for 1950s Italy?
For 1950s Italy in a movie.
I think that I think Roberto Rossellini would probably have something to say about that. He's got some films during this time
for me
that
personally.
you might want to consider.
For me personally. Any other Apex Mountains? Nobody else, I don't think, really qualifies. Unless you wanted to make a Hoffman case, which I'm not ready to do.
You know, Anthony
I was gonna
Minghella is
ask
kind of an
Minghella.
interesting
Oh,
one
that's a
to
good
talk
one. What's-
about. Because obviously The English Patient is like a major triumph, huge hit, wins all these Oscars. And a lot of people were like, can he follow it up? Can Damon follow it up? And like they did. They made it successful. And then it was
I
like
thought English Patient maybe, but maybe you're right. Now that he does this,
Right.
and then it's like, oh man, here we go.
everything at his fingertips. And he, you know, he doesn't make as many movies as you would have wanted him to make. He died so young.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever got back to something this successful and beloved either.
It's a bad one. Bad loss.
It is.
it is.
He would have made some
I
great
feel
movies.
like he would have had a couple more decades there.
His movies that follow are a little bit, they don't feel like they're fully there. Like Cold Mountain and Breaking and Entering in particular are like, there's something a little bit off about both of them. They're interesting, but they're not like these first two.
The Joey Pants Award for Best That Guy, unless we want to give it to Philip Baker Hall, but I feel like he's Philip Baker Hall now. The guy who plays Dickie's dad?
Yeah,
James
Rebhorn.
Rebhorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is an all-time that guy.
All-timer.
Yeah.
I think they both are. I mean,
I can't even name the other movies he's been in, but I know he's been in 30 of them.
You want to do a couple? I mean,
He was in Son of a Woman, right?
he's in Son of a Woman, also starring Philip Seymour
Yeah.
Hoffman. Well, he's in the My Cousin Vinny Basic Instinct back-to-back. That's pretty huge.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Carlito's Way. He's in White Squall.
Who's he in Basic Instinct?
Dr. McElwain. He's one of the
Oh.
psychiatrists.
Yeah.
he's the dad on Homeland. Forgot about that.
That's
Oh,
right.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's his
He
name?
also has like a mental illness of some kind.
Yeah,
right?
I think
right?
so.
What's his name? James Rebhorn?
Rebhorn, yeah. Just
God,
a
what a good
phenomenal
that guy.
guy.
Kind of like the G.D. Spradlin for his generation.
Good call, yeah. Do you think
Like in the 70s, he's definitely playing Senator Geary.
I feel like you got to do the pyramid for that guys.
He's in there.
You think he's in the upper rung?
Is Joe Pantoliano, is he the number one?
Yeah. He's the overlord.
His 80s run is just unparalleled.
This is good shit. I also really like how much Rebhorn hates jazz. Where a guy's playing jazz and he's like, give that guy $100 just to shut up.
He's under some stress. His son is
Sure.
missing. He's in a foreign country that he doesn't want to be in. And the saxophone is reminding him of his son.
Why does Herbert Greenleaf hate Europe? That's kind of a hot take.
It's right after the war.
Yeah, they're supposed to be post-war Americans. They're
Yeah.
building their own world. They're snobby. Right.
Good call.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Sounds like now.
I agree.
Herbert Greenleaf hates Brexit.
Linda Partridge, they knew overacting award. Everyone in the Sylvana death scene, some of the most overacting we've ever had in a movie. All right, half-assed internet research. Damon lost 30 pounds allegedly. learned how to play the piano, ran 6 miles a day, and was covered in makeup all over his body to make him seem pasty and pale in comparison to Law and Paltrow.
I can't relate to him anymore as someone who is that pasty and pale.
I thought you were wearing makeup too.
No,
You're not? Okay.
No, just an undercoat.
Damon actually sang My Funny Valentine.
Yeah?
Yeah. Jude Law learned how to play the saxophone.
Where are you at on Chet Baker, Bill? You a big Chet Baker guy?
Yeah.
No?
The early stuff. Jude Law gained weight for the movie, so Dickie could seem a little more of substance.
Jude Law is also jacked in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Broke a rib while falling backward while filming the murder scene in the boat. After viewing the film, Tommy Wiseau was so emotionally moved that he vowed to make a film just as compelling. And 4 years later, that film was The Room.
That's the most incredible IMDb
half-assed.
trivia moment of all time.
They're kind of similar movies.
I mean,
it's about like a sociopath in a bad relationship who's maybe more in love with his friend than the woman, and one of them kills the other, right? Isn't that what happens in The Room?
Sure. Tom kills Freddie with a bust of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who had a gay lover who was killed.
A little on the nose.
Research.
You were a classics major.
Yeah.
What's up with Hadrian?
Well, he built a wall. And you've never heard about Hadrian's Wall? That's like a big thing.
Break it down.
It was very long. There's some of it in the UK, and obviously Rome's in Rome, which is far away. And then also he had a gay lover, and he looks like the bust that's in this movie. That concludes Amanda's Classics Corner.
We'll be back. The production, they were shooting in all these different seaside towns. They shot in Rome, they shot in Sicily and Naples, and sometimes the shoots were hundreds of miles apart, and they had to scramble around these different places. I think he shot everything in sequence, which made it harder.
Interesting.
Clint Eastwood would have been like, "We're shooting all the Sicily stuff today. We're banging out the boat scene right now."
Clint Eastwood, known Italy and Sicily enthusiast.
Not sure the story really would have resonated with Clint Eastwood. This is not really in his style.
Recasting couch. Let's talk about Peter, whatever his name is, for a second.
Jack Davenport?
Yeah. This could have been like early Colin Farrell. I don't know if he's old enough yet. I wish it was somebody that would eventually become a major star, because then we would have had 6 instead of 5. This guy kind of comes and goes. We don't know what happens to him after this movie.
Really, for 3/4 of my life, and also rewatching this movie, I thought it was the guy from
Dead Poets Society?
Yes, that guy. What's his name?
Robert Sean Leonard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another 3-name person, but it's not Robert Sean Leonard.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Could have been a bigger star in this role.
I'm trying to think of who would have been good in this part.
It's Colin Farrell 5 years later.
No,
I was thinking more like Colin Firth.
Yeah, because that I agree with Colin Firth, because this person is actually supposed to be like a good person.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a little elitist and snotty because he hangs with all these people, but it's like supposed to
Colin Firth.
show that Tom can.
What about
be
Jack
normal.
Black?
Jack Black?
No?
Absolutely no.
Didn't want English accent?
No.
Jack Black?
I was just throwing out some
Will Ferrell. Why not Chevy Chase?
Will Ferrell trying to be weird. Picking nits. Why wouldn't Dickie's dad just go to Italy to get him? Just can't go to Europe
That's
and
true.
Too
drag
busy
him back.
building ships.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're Ripley, do you just come clean about being Dickie at the end on the boat with Cate Blanchet?
I don't think you can, because then you definitely get arrested.
You become
for
a
murder.
suspect?
Yeah. I mean, there is a question of why doesn't he kill her instead of Jack Davenport?
Because her people saw him.
Okay.
Nobody saw Jack Davenport.
Okay.
except
Are we
for
picking
one
nits
person.
or unanswerable questions?
Picking nits. It can be an unanswerable question too.
The two things are related, because when he kills Peter, how does he get off the boat? Like, where does he do with Peter's body?
Overboard.
He throws Peter's body overboard?
Yeah.
What about when they get off the ship and they're like going through the manifest?
He's like, oh, he must have
Killed
left
himself
or something.
My second friend who killed
I don't
himself?
know where he is.
What a coincidence.
That's just
I don't
that's
know.
a tough one. I was trying to figure out, like, where is Peter's body?
He's like, I can't believe this happened again. 2 friends that killed themselves.
It's
Mysteriously.
really tough.
I think he
I'm
probably
wearing their rings.
pretends to be someone else when he gets off the boat.
You think he's like, I'm Peter? It's
yeah.
me, Peter?
Yes. I mean, no one's fact-checking. No one's checking anything.
Yeah.
No one's looking at photographs.
That's the genius thing of the movie, is that everything is happening in 1950 whatever, and there's no way to double check anything. You know, like people
It's true.
literally look at a passport photo of Jude Law and then they look at Matt Damon and they're like, checks out. And people are like, okay, whatever. Could be a bad photo.
This is true. Here's one related nitpick, though. Like, wouldn't someone at some newspaper have like an actual photograph of Dickie Greenleaf? Because he's like famous and he's the son of like the shipping heir and he's also really handsome and
I
ostentatious.
think it was really easy to get away with stuff in the 1950s.
Yeah, but like once they're doing a lot of news stories about it, because at one point they say like this is a really big deal, like because Freddie's
there is
gone and we don't.
paparazzi following him.
There at least there has to be like one, like there's a Princeton yearbook
This
with
is a
like
pretty
the
good pick and knit.
actual photograph of Dickie Greenleaf that exists.
There's a lot of flaws in this movie.
Yeah.
The plotting is a little bit complicated.
And how does
Right.
Amanda Knox get in here?
Right.
That was weird.
Great point. Great callback.
Yeah.
The Amanda Knox story, basically a remake of The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Very too,
Oh my God,
very
it
too
really
soon.
is.
Please don't bring that up in my presence.
Why?
What?
Do you know what my middle name is?
Oh, right.
It's Knox. My name is Amanda Knox
I forgot
Dobbins.
about this.
Okay, my Google results were really screwed up for like 4 to 5 years there. And
Your middle name is Knox?
my middle name is Knox.
Wow.
Yeah. That was tough. Couldn't go to Italy for a couple years. Still a little nervous about it, to be quite honest. We were mostly vindicated.
We?
All
You're
like
Amanda Knox's.
Ripley.
That's like, I have to tell you. I didn't ask for this.
Amazing.
I know.
That threw you off your scent
Yeah.
there.
I'm trying to think what I would have done if I was him. You're on the boat. Everything's great. I'm with, what's the guy's name? Peter Kingsley Johnson?
Peter Smith Kingsley.
Peter Smith Kingsley. I'm good. I found a guy. I have all Dickie's money. Everything's worked out great. But then it's like, oh, I see Cate Blanchet and I see the aunt who knows him.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 witnesses. I don't know. I think I would have at least entertained trying to get rid of Cate Blanchett.
What about
and
just
the
throwing
aunt.
her overboard? You know, just like, hey! just
Oh my
just
God.
right over. Whoops.
That's what happens to everyone else in this movie,
Yeah.
except for Freddie
Thrown
Miles.
overboard.
And then he gets found.
No,
so-
Marge gets out of it. Marge is
Yeah, but
about to
everyone
buy
who
it.
dies, I mean.
Best quote, other than ones we mentioned. I always thought it'd be better to be a fake somebody than a real nobody. This is a great quote. No matter what you do, no matter how awful, no one ever thinks they're a bad person. I think it's actually a good quote. That'd be a good senior yearbook quote. That would freak everybody out in your class.
Not something
Like,
you want to put
what
in
is
your
going
book.
on there?
Yeah, you don't want to quote this movie in your yearbook.
Why is it when men play, they always play at killing each other? It's a great one.
Yeah.
We mentioned all the other ones. Could this be remade as a 10-episode Netflix show? My first answer was fuck yeah. I'd be in. 10 episodes. I'm in Italy.
Who are the stars?
Well, they're remaking it. They're doing it. And Andrew Scott, Hot Priest,
Oh, that's right.
is going to be Ripley. Hot Priest from Fleabag.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know that. I don't believe it's for
Netflix?
Netflix, no, but for another streaming service. Yeah.
Amazon?
Feels a little HBO Max.
I think it's Amazon. Or maybe it is HBO Max. Yeah, I mean, there are 5 Ripley books, right? So there's a lot of story to tell. There have been 4 or 5 versions of the movie, so it's not like... also, con man stories are the best. Like, they're just very entertaining.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is... It's still a little evil.
Yeah.
Like, following this person for 10 hours is a little much.
Well, I
'cause-
don't think he would turn until like the 5th episode,
Oh,
right? You'd
interesting.
probably go.
Okay. Because
him
there's
be
a
pretty
difference between
normal.
like... Yeah, because like that's what Breaking Bad does, right? Breaking Bad takes a long time before you're like, oh, God, Walt is a piece of shit. You know, when he kills Jane.
I'm still in on Walt.
What?
Yeah.
You think he was justified in everything he did?
Can't judge.
Good guy?
Can't judge from
GTK?
far away.
Good guy to know?
Don't know the choices he had to make. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Like
Okay.
murder several dozen people?
Well,
Distribute drugs across the country?
it's a blemish.
Okay. I just want to
enough.
update. It's a Showtime show. 8 episodes, written and directed by Steven Zalian.
Showtime.
Oh, screenwriter of The Irishman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the most appropriately length movies of all time.
Yeah, there you go. Showtime needs something.
Yeah, they're getting Ripley.
Well, I'm excited for that. Unanswerable questions. Would you rather be with Marge or the cute Italian girl? This is just for Fennessey.
Why can't I answer that as
Savannah.
well?
You can answer it.
Honestly, neither
you're
one is my
so
type.
You're out on
boring.
both.
You're so boring.
I love Savannah.
Really? That's your pick, though? I want to be with Marge.
I think he was
Marge is an
handling it
excellent
perfectly.
writer.
Silvana looks like she cuts her hair with a rock. I'm just not into that.
I liked how I think he was on the right path.
On the right path
Yeah,
of
with
impregnating
both.
her?
No, at that part, maybe not. But he had Sylvana. He was still playing his options. He knew he was going to marry Marge. He was trying to sow his oats a little bit. It's the 1950s. Who's there to judge? And
clearly Sylvana who killed herself.
Well, and then and then he gets killed. So it went a little wrong.
Right.
The plan, it fell apart.
Okay.
But I think
You're saying he had good strat.
1950s Dickie, I think, was like, all right. And then obviously had more than just those two, too. He's a magnetic guy.
He is a magnetic guy. He's a terrible person.
Got to spread it around.
I personally pick Marge. She can make a martini.
Marge was great.
She has,
Marge.
Yeah, great style.
She's a writer.
She's a writer.
Right. What kind of book was she working on?
A novel, I think.
Was it?
I don't know.
Definitely a bad novel.
That's rude.
Marge. I don't think she had a lot to say.
She has like the most insightful obseration. You were just like, this is the best quote.
She's
is
just
what
writing
Marge
about
says.
like rich people in Italy. I don't know.
You, okay, me, you, we are. We literally just did a whole podcast about it.
I think she eventually ends up on Mad Men and gets involved with Don Draper for 3 episodes.
I'm much more into the Cate Blanchet character. You
Yeah.
know? She has all the wealth, but also hates herself. You know, so there's a ton of vulnerability there.
Well, she has that great moment when she first meets who she thinks is Dickie, and she's complaining about some super rich thing. What does she say? She says something like
the bags. She's like, she has too many bags. You have to teach me how to pack so lightly.
Or is it when they're in Rome at the Spanish Steps and she's like, the thing is like people like us, we really hate the money. Of course, you know that. You can't say it.
You're like, you're so full of shit.
Really great
you
scene.
just flew in on whatever the fanciest plane was.
She basically comes in on like the Queen Mary, right? What's the name of that ship that they take when the driver is like, the Greenleafs know the owner of this giant cruise ship. Amazing stuff.
Do you think Dickie, my other unanswerable question, do you think Dickie ever was like, I'll hook up with Tom tonight?
I think you're meant to think it's crossed his mind.
Yeah.
He's a sensualist. He wants to try everything.
Right. Okay. Any other unanswerable questions?
I don't know. Do you root for Tom?
I just like the movie. I've seen it so many times. I'm not really rooting for anyone because I already know it's going to happen. But in the moment, it is weird sometimes when you watch movies and you're rooting for bad people to get away. And the ultimate example is Natural Born Killers, right? Those were the worst people on the planet. You're like, I hope they survive 2 more scenes.
That's true.
Just be rooting for them to be shot down by police.
Well, the movie does something interesting that like pretty much no one in the movie, with the exception maybe of Marge, that is surrounding Ripley is a good person.
Yeah.
And so it kind of justifies some of the choices that he makes to the audience, even if they're still monstrous. Question I have for you guys is, have you ever been a Dickie or a Tom in your life? Have you ever been a person that has a relationship with someone who looks up to you aggressively and then you kind of are keeping them at bay but also keeping them close? Or have you ever wanted to be someone so desperately? I feel like it's most likely you get to have these experiences as like a teenager. You know, when someone's a little older than you,
right.
They have more access to stuff than you understand.
This is such a good question. When I was rewatching it, I was thinking a lot about the Ferrante novels. Do you guys know about those? My Brilliant Friend, which are set in Naples and are about essentially kind of a female version of this relationship minus the actual sociopathy and the murder. Though actually I haven't finished the series, so maybe there is some murder and I don't know about it. No spoilers. But this idea of just being of one person in the relationship and the friendship being so obsessed with the other person. And I have basically always not been a huge fan of the Ferrante novels because I just don't understand the dynamic at all. But there's like, in that way, it's presented more as like, this is what female friendship is like. And it's not what female friendship is like. That's not friendship, just FYI. But in this movie, because it's shown to be unhealthy, and this idea of obsession and longing and aspiration is shown to have disastrous ends for pretty much everyone. I relate to it more. I guess I don't know if I've ever been. I think for me, like my Dickies would be like Jude Law and like the people in movies. I really do like see this as the, kind of the way I'm fixated on like famous people and I guess to an extent, rich people and the people who can afford to go to Italy all the time.
Those are the best movie characters, though, right? The people that are able to create this charismatic tornado that you just want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Over and over again. Those are the ones that we end up remembering. I just didn't expect Jude Law would be one of the ones that created it, right?
Yeah, but he's just undeniable.
Yeah.
He's such a perfect presentation, especially of like mid-century America, of like what people thought the idealized life was. Wealth, beauty, the ability to do anything that they want, but not choosing not to do anything. I feel like so many people just fantasize about the idea of like, when I'm retired at 32, you know,
Right.
they just want to get away and be done with stuff. And he has chosen that path specifically of just going to bed with beautiful women, listening to jazz music, sailing. That's his life.
I had one more unanswerable question. Do you think the name Marge is ever going to come back?
No, I feel like The Simpsons pretty much ended that.
The Simpsons ruined Marge.
Well, not ruined it, but there's only, I think we only have one association with Marge now. It's hard to overcome
How
that.
about Maude?
That one's tough. It's a,
Judd Apatow tried. He did a Maude.
I've always liked Maude.
Because I think having gone through, now that my kids are older, but there was this kind of generation of names that all the same kids have in whatever class you have. But there's an Olivia and an Ava and an Eva and all these names that nobody had when like we were growing up. And I'm wondering now if people are going to go back further and go into the Marge.
Well, I've always
kind
loved
of the old 20s and 30s names.
I've always loved Margot. I think that's
Margot.
a great name. And
That one's in there though. That's in the rotation.
people
for
use that. Yeah, so we have
modern.
a friend who has a Margot. But Margot is also Gwyneth Paltrow in Tenenbaums. She's a Margot. And there's something hip about that. Marge, that's not hip.
The move is Jenny. Jenny's ready for a comeback.
Jenny?
Jenny. There's
Spoken
no
like
Jennys.
a true Massachusetts guy.
There's no Jennys under age 15.
There were so many
I know.
born
It
between
was the most
1970 and
number one
1990.
name, right?
Yeah. Jenny and Michael, I just feel like I knew 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
I feel like this is just your Forrest Gump coming through.
What do you mean?
The Jenny and Forrest Gump
No,
character.
Jenny's
Yeah.
going to come back.
Eh.
It should come back.
I don't know.
Jenny, everyone was named Jenny for 20 years, and then everybody's like, no more Jennys. And there's not, my kids have not been in a class for 14 years that there was a Jenny or a Jennifer.
Can I
which
tell
is
you
crazy.
what I want to come back is Dickie.
Dickie.
When are we getting Dickie back in the mix? I don't
Dickie's
know
great.
anybody named Dick. I don't know a single Dick. I don't know a Richard or a Dick.
I only
He's
know
under
Dickie
the age
Barrett.
of 50.
Because I think
Dickie
now
Barrett.
you're not allowed to like give kids any names with like obvious bullying possibilities.
Oh.
You know?
That's... But nobody has ever called him Dickie.
Well, let's start calling him Dickie and see
Okay.
how it goes.
I'm sure he'll love it.
Shout out to Richie.
Who won the movie? Tough one.
I think it has to be Jude Law.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of how I feel
that's
too,
the
but
answer
it's
for me.
amazing because Damon, this is such an important performance for his career, and he's, top 5 actor the last 25 years, and he doesn't win this movie.
Right before we jumped onto this podcast, Kate Hallowell saw I was going into the podcast studio, and she was like, "Are you going to do Talented Mr. Ripley? You're going to talk about just how incredibly hot Jude Law is in that movie." That is the lasting impression of the movie.
Yeah.
And also, the movie's never the same after he leaves.
It's true.
That's right. That's a great way to put it.
Great job by him. Little Sonny Corleone-ish.
I think The Godfather recovered pretty well.
It did,
I think
but
it's
I'm
okay.
saying,
I think
like,
it's
same
okay
kind
after
of-
Sonny dies.
He dies, and it's like, oh man, really? That guy's gonna be gone now?
Yeah, no, it's true.
We don't get to hang out with him anymore.
That's how you know you're a charismatic actor, when
Yeah.
you get gunned down halfway through.
Amanda, Sean, pleasure as always.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Bill.